How good are Morocco actually, John? How far could they go in this World Cup tournament?
Well, I think Morocco have been one of the most attractive teams to watch this tournament, and the reason for that is because they utilise a lot of rotations between their players. Actually, if we look at the setup that they have, the players that they have, I think there's a lot of overlap with this kind of profiles that they've got. They can actually rotate players in different positions, but also across the front line, so that they can end up, pulling opponents around all the times. So if we start off in the midfield area, we've got Neil Al-Ainawi, who is playing at Roma, and we've got Bouadi as well, who everyone is very excited about, the 18-year-old.
Everyone's talking about Bouadi.
Everyone is talking about Bouadi, but again, what we've seen Morocco able to do is either of these two can drop between the lines, either of them can push forward. It just gives you a huge amount of flexibility. If the opposition are trying to mark you out in a sort of structured way, either of these two players can switch positions, do the opposite thing, and it's just very difficult for opponents to catch up with them. And then elsewhere across the pitch, the famous rotation is Hakimi. He can basically go anywhere. He can sit in the pocket. He often plays on the last line. The team are able to cover for him. And also we've got El Khanous, who at times this season has been over on the right-hand side. If he goes out right, then Unahi can fill in for him on that side. We've got Mazraoui as well, who has the ability to rotate around. And Saibari, even the striker, a similar profile to these guys as well. So again, maybe Unahi doesn't go, maybe Saibari goes. And what you're doing then is you just have a huge amount of flexibility in a world where teams are trying to use opponents as registers or references for where they're going to press. It can actually make it very, very difficult to actually track these players.
Would this help them against France, though, who I think, were they to continue progressing, they would meet in the quarterfinals?
Yeah, so the good example we have of how Morocco might face up against France is how they might face up against a team like Brazil, right? Where their rotations actually help them to get through their Brazilian press a little bit more easily, because there was gaps to be found and they would rotate players in and move the ball down the field. So I think against a team like France, they have the ability to actually break those I guess, more advanced blocks down. When we see them playing against the Netherlands actually had a very different approach to them, which was to sit in a much deeper block. And again, they were able to find ways of using the rotations that they have, but in quite a different way in order to cause them problems.
Because they did seem to dominate a big chunks of that game.
Yeah, they certainly did. And I think one of the ways that they did that was by attempting to work against the Netherlands' potential to be able to counter-attack. What the Netherlands were doing was they were sitting deep. They had a back line of 5 players, which was 4 centre-backs and Denzel Dumfries, so you can see that on the board here. But what we were seeing Morocco doing was actually working the ball, particularly down the right-hand side, and then just overloading that side. So I've written all the players' names on here just again to show you the ability they have to rotate. Because they have very similar profiles in each position, you can move these players around and still end up with players able to do the sorts of things that are being expected of them in different positions. Often when we talk about rotations, it's kind of like this player switches with this player, and you think, yeah, okay, but you don't want that player in that other position. So you do get the advantage of having the players moving around, but you don't necessarily get the profile advantage, whereas here you really do. So we've got El Khanous, who, as we said before, is usually over on the left-hand side. You've got Brahim Diaz, who's usually playing in that left wing slot. He's dropped a little bit deeper. Unahi, who you'd expect to see more central in that 10 slot, he's dropped in. We've got Al-Ainawi here, I guess where you would expect the pivot to be, but then Bouadi can get further forward. And then Hakimi, obviously the right back, is in that more advanced space as well.
Can I say, in the spirit of an American World Cup, John, that Americans would call these sorts of players Swiss Army knives? Swiss
Army knives, yeah, exactly. And what this allows them to do then is to overload this area, keep the ball. You're almost playing like a rondo in that situation. And it does a couple of things. One of the things that it does is, well, the attempt is to try and overload on that side, drag the defence across and create chances on the other side. So you can see Saibari, the striker, now has just drifted right across to the far side. So if we actually move the sequence forward, we can see Morocco possessing the ball, overloading on this far side. They're 5 versus 4 against the Netherlands here. The idea of what they want to do here is be able to keep the ball and then work a chance to get the ball into the box. And it's obviously much easier when you have an overload here, but it's also worth noting that they've got players in support positions here as well, so they've got the option of maybe hitting the byline through Diaz or Hakimi hitting that channel, but at the same time, if they decide that they don't want to do that, they can recycle the ball back round to one of these players who can then find the ball into the box. And when they reach a scenario where they decide we're going to try and get the ball into the box, we can see here one of the Morocco players running towards the centre-backs to drag them in to isolate Saibari at the back post against Denzel Dumfries. Now, maybe this isn't the best way of generating a chance because Dumfries is obviously a very good aerial player, but you can see what they're trying to do here, and it's not just about trying to generate chances, it's also about thinking about how do we mitigate the problems in the other direction, right? Which is, if you lose the ball, you are quite exposed and you don't want to allow the Dutch to make the counter-attacks that they are wanting to do.
Yeah, I'm watching this, imagining Mbappe and Elise winning the ball back and then charging downfield.
But it's worth saying as well that those overloads in the wide area, they also give you solutions to those problems, right? Which is, if you have a lot of good access to one area, if you have that overload, if you do lose the ball, then you have the ability to actually close down the opponent pretty quickly.
To gegenpress, John.
To gegenpress, exactly. So I've just got an example of that here as well. So again, I've put the players' names on here just to show you that what we're seeing is a lot of rotation, right? El Khanous now is back on the other side. Bouadi, who is the pivot player, is now in that wide area.
Yeah.
We've still got Diaz up here now, Hakimi pressing higher up, and Unahi's actually dropped out to be one of those support players. So you can see that these players are really comfortable just shifting positions and taking up the roles that those positions require.
Would you say that they're good rotations?
They are good rotations, yeah. But I think as well, it's worth giving praise to the coaching staff here as well, because these sorts of approaches require a huge amount of understanding between the players. You don't get a huge amount of time to work with players in order for them to develop these dynamics between themselves. And I think it's really clear that the Morocco team, I mean, they've obviously been together for a long time now. They did well in the Africa Cup of Nations.
They made it to the semi-finals in 2022 World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've got a new coaching staff now because Walid Regragui moved on. So what we're seeing is the same sorts of ideas being used again. So all props to the coaching staff here. But in this instance, Hakimi loses the ball. And as you can see, those support players then become counter-pressing players.
Right.
They're able to they have good access, they're able to put immediate pressure on the ball when it comes out. And as you can see here now, 5 players around the 3 Dutch players on the ball. Actually, in this instance, they're able to win the ball back and generate a counter of their own as well. And another thing to say is that the similarity of profiles, often I think in the modern game, we're so used to seeing sort of gigantic players to solve problems of how do you deal with transition.
Yeah.
This is a team who they've lent into having these technical profiles, very similar players across the forward line in particular and in the midfield. Actually, that gives them certain advantages in these kind of situations as well, in that they can arrive really quickly into those counter pressures. And also, there's plenty of examples of when these counter pressing moments are broken and the opponents are able to find channel balls, all of these players will drop back and they'll swarm back. And you don't get that so much, I don't think, in an approach where you're sort of relying on your more physical players deeper to solve problems.
Right.
And so add all of this together, and I think what we're seeing from Morocco is, yes, a really nice aesthetic style of play, but also lots of solutions to different kind of game states. Against Brazil, they were able to move the ball quickly through the lines. Against the Netherlands, where it was a very different game, the Netherlands playing underdog football, sitting deep and looking to counter-attack, they also found solutions there as well. So really excited to see how deep they go in this tournament, and it would be lovely to see them go as far as they did last time.
So England are going to win the World Cup.
That's right, Joe.
Great news, John. Great news.